In this video, we're going to look at the code structure for the RPG demo 0.1. It's the very first version of the project. It's simple, consider this a game prototype, and it will give you an example of a few things. First, how as a professional you may prototype a game. Not everyone will code the way I do. I try to make the code readable and to make it scalable, to make it so I don't have to rewrite the entire demo from scratch after I've done the first prototype, because it's a standard type of game. So we have a turn-based JRPG here. As you follow some codes when it comes to the gameplay, you can easily have a solid idea on how you're going to structure your game systems. Note that the project runs in Godot 3.1 Alpha 2 at the time of recording, so it's an unstable version. In the future, we'll port it to Godot 3.1, but Godot 3.0 will not work with this. The main scene is game.tscn. In this one, you will find the main game node that just starts the encounter at the moment. So it's supposed to manage the game. Later, there will be things like the ability to pause and all that stuff. But for now, all it does is get that transition color node that you can find on our Open ARPG that's going to play the transition to fade it in and out, and then it will call battle start on the combat arena, which is the entire combat scene here. So I'll open the combat arena tscn file next. Here we are in the combat arena, the place where the battles happen. So let's look at the nodes under combat arena. That's just a node 2D so that we can reposition the battlers. And as you can see, the background is kind of stuck in place. The first node you have is the spawn positions. Right now, they are hard placed for the monster and the party. Later, the idea is that you will be able to place them programmatically to create group formations or to place them based on the backdrop you would have. But as we don't have art just yet, and it's really not too important early on in a combat system, right now, they are just hard placed. So the idea, if I hide the turn queue, is that I can go get one of the battlers, one of the characters. So I'll grab Dan Battler, for example, place it on one of the positions, and then reparent it under the turn queue. So these are just here to help me place the battlers early on to test the functionality in the game. One of the most important nodes here is the turn queue, and there's going to be a dedicated tutorial. So we're not going to look at the code, but this is what manages the turns in the game. It has some code that's just for that, and it's not specific to a combat system. It would work just the same for a puzzle game or something like that, with minor code variations. In this game, it is a Y-sort node, meaning that it will automatically change the Z order of the battlers based on their position on the battlefield. And so even if you attack, even if you have a character that, well, in this case, if it jumps over the other character, it's not going to work. But if it goes behind a big monster like that, the engine will take care of handling the Z order for us. Then in this turn queue, you have a list of battlers. So battler is the class or the scene type that holds these characters and these monsters, all the functionality that lets them attack, defend, also manages their health and all that stuff. We're going to look at that in a moment. And then you have a layer for the combat's interface. And this one displays the life bars and hooks them onto the battler's spawn position. It also handles the arrow that you can see and use to pick a monster, to pick a target. The way the interface works is disconnected from the turn queue and the actual combat. So the idea is to keep as much of a separation as possible between the actual game mechanics and the interface that helps you, the player, to pick a monster and to see the life bars. So when a turn starts, the next battler in the queue becomes active. And for example, if this is blue here, if this is this blue character. As it's a party member, the combat arena will check for that. So it will ask the turn queue for the active battler, and it will then send the data that the combat interface needs to let you select the right opponent. So if you have blue active that turn, it will say, okay, let me grab the 3 monsters here, the opponents of the party, and I will send them to the select arrow. So you will only be able to select one of the 3 porcupines. So we already have tutorials on the channel for UI. You can find a card on the screen right now to access the playlist. And that said, we're going to look at the essential scene in the game, the battler, where a lot of things happen. So I'm going to open one of them, blue, for example, and these battlers inherit from a base scene called battler.tscn. So you can find it in the combats folder and the battlers subfolder. Let me open it. You're not going to see a skin here because, as you can see under the skin node on that scene, there is nothing. The skin by default is empty, and when you create a new character or a monster, you add the animated character that you want to use for that battler. So it's really up to you to pick what animations, what set of animations you want to have for that character. Now the base battler has the skin that's going to hold all the animation, and the skin is a position 2D in itself, so we can offset it from the starting position of the battler and use it as a root position. If I go to the blue battler, you will see that in our animation player on the skin node, we have some animations to make the battler appear. We have one to make it blink when you have this battler active, when it's this character's turn, and you have an idle animation that doesn't do anything for now, plus a twin node to separately animate the character moving, like appearing at the start of the battle. Then the characters' animations themselves are going to be in a separate scene. And the point is that the animators in your team can work on that character specifically. They can rig it, they can create animations like this attack animation on the character. And in the meantime, the developers can keep working on the skin, on the battler's base functionality and basic animation that are common to all battlers. So this way you can keep working productively and not step on each other's toes. Back to the battler scene, you also have a job node, and this one is a scene in itself. I'm going to make children editable just so that we can see them. So the job is going to hold everything that has to do with the character's starting stats. It's like the character's class in an RPG. So it can be a knight, a fighter, mage, anything you'd like. So it has some stats node that's going to manage the health, the strength of the character, etc. And on the job node, you will find a starting stats slot, and we use it to set the starting stats on the character. These are of type starting stats, so you have a GDScript file for that. That allows us to create a custom resource with these few properties. So you have the job's name or the class's name, maximum health, strength, defense, and speed, and we can extend it moving forward. Having this allows you to select these resources, like the default job here, and to set the character's stats in the inspector directly. If I take the example of the fighter and open it in the inspector, you can see that the fighter has high health, a bit of strength, low defense, and high speed. And when we play the game, you will see that the playable character has 15 health, and the monsters have 7 health. Well, this is due to the starting stats. And later you can add some more info here, like the experience curve, if you want to change it depending on the character class. More importantly, you can also create some base skills or traits on the character in the same way. So with a script that extends the resource in Godot. And anything, so on the job node, you can create an exported variable that's using one of these resources. And this is how you get this starting stats slot that you can replace with anything you'd like, really any class. The job scene has a skills node that is empty at the moment. I'm not decided on the skills system yet. I guess this will work with some database and a resource node as well that lets you decide in which order this class will unlock skills. Then you have the actions node. Each action that you can use in the game, for example, attacking, is going to be a separate node. And right now there's only attack, but the idea is that we can create new commands, new battle actions like these, and we can place them inside of that action node. And later the UI will be able to give you a menu based on the nodes that you put in here. So if you were to add a magic option, a magic action, you can place it in the menu and you will be able to select between attack and magic. The battler has an interface anchor node and a target anchor. So interface anchor is the position on which the life bar will appear, and you can offset it based on the size of the monster or the character that you have in the game. And the target anchor is going to be the position that the battler, the characters, move to when they attack in the fight. So in the battle, when the characters attack, they don't move on the monster's position, they move in front of it, and this is done with this target anchor. They move to the target anchor. With that, this is the extent of the first demo, version 0.1. So you have the main combat loop, and there's going to be more tutorials that are specific to different nodes and scripts. I hope this is useful. Please tell me in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions for improvements on this format. You can find the project on GitHub. It is completely free and open source, again, made with Godot 3.1. Contributors are much welcome. You have a few issues there. You will find a contributing guide. But that said, I want to thank you kindly for watching. Be creative, have fun, and we'll see each other in the next one. Bye-bye.